David, in trying to know whether God exists, which is a critical question, at least for me over my lifetime, many people who do believe would tell me I have to experience God and have this internal feeling, and for whatever reason, that doesn't work for me. Maybe it should, but it doesn't. And so I've looked to philosophy, science, particularly metaphysics, in the kinds of analysis which can, if not prove God, for sure not prove, at least give a sense that, give a deep sense that such may be a reasonable prospect. How do you view metaphysics as something that, through analysis, can discern God?
Well, the first thing I'll say is there's no one correct way in which the mind makes its journey into God. So, I mean, some of us by temperament are more effective and some more speculative and reserved. I'm sort of in the latter category myself. I think that metaphysics can first discern the areas in which the question can be coherently asked. If we ask the question idly in the way that it's, say, a new atheist polemic or in even intelligent design, it's asked, then we get into rather silly squabbles about whether we can ascertain the existence of a specific entity that has qualities that we're often ascribing or denying him as our intuition dictates. So what metaphysics can do first, as a special science of what lies beyond physical investigation, is discern those areas where the question of God presents itself, such as the question of being, the question of the existence of all things, the modalities of possibility and probability, the metaphysics of consciousness. If we think of mind as not, if we come to the conclusion that mind is not reducible simply to a mechanical phenomenon, and in then delineating those areas, it can move deductively towards certain affirmations. Those in and of themselves will never be a replete spiritual diet. I mean, you're never, I mean, there is, all the traditions say that at the end of the day, God is personal, you are personal, you belong to a community of personal beings. The personality relation, in some sense, lies at the ground of reality in a way more fundamental than a simple psychological fact. And so the final encounter with God, or an encounter with God that would take you beyond doubt, wouldn't have the character of a metaphysical proof. But philosophy can do a lot. I mean, it can recognize also the differences between kinds of questions. Why, when we're asking ontological questions, we're not asking questions of cosmic etiology, say. And to that degree, it's a wonderful discipline of the mind and the will in teaching us how to seek, what questions to ask, what questions are intelligible, and what answers, perhaps, even our normal experience of life demands.
Okay, so I appreciate what you're saying, and metaphysics can get us to a point, never going to be a full proof of God, but you mentioned two categories that metaphysics would work in towards the God question. One is the nature of being, existence itself. The second is the nature of consciousness. So for each of these, give me an example of the kinds of questions that you would ask in that category and the kinds of answers that you might get, and how one of those would direct towards God.
Well, in the realm of ontology, the classical question remains, is contingent, as a thoroughly contingent existence of the cosmos, of anything possible? Is it a modal possibility, not just a likelihood, or whether or not, rigorously followed to its most original premises, everything that is contingent must finally rest upon a single absolute ground. But that will take you again to the God of philosophy. It will not necessarily take you any farther than that. Nonetheless, it's a significant thing, because if you come to the conclusion that that's correct, then you're almost morally obliged to continue to search, because the entire frame of reality now is invoking from you or provoking from you a set of questions and concerns that weren't there before, and that seem to be the very substance of life. The realm of consciousness, too. If you come to the conclusion that the intentional structure of consciousness, that the rational structure of thought, that the unity of apperception, that the sheer subjectivity as such isn't reducible to physical causes, and moreover, in some sense seems to participate in the very intelligibility of all that exists, and might point towards a more fundamental intelligibility and even spiritual nature in the fabric of all things. Or if you conclude from that since you can't reduce all things to material explanations, perhaps you should invert your expectations and reduce them to spiritual expectations, then again, your entire frame of reality has, I would think, been altered fairly fundamentally, and other questions now that you cannot help but ask come into view.